Inspire.
From Aspire, this is Starting Now, a show about change, resilience, and your next big idea. I'm Jeff Sarris. Today's guest is the founder of 12-Minute Athlete, Krista Stryker. Through her 12-Minute Athlete app, her book, and the immense library of content that she's created online, Krista helps people reach their fitness goals through high-intensity interval training and bodyweight exercise. In this episode, Krista talks about her shift from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, and how a simple bet that she couldn't do a push-up eventually led her to become the face of her own fitness brand and business. So, without further ado, let's get started. So hey there, Krista. Thank you so much for doing this.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So you are an entrepreneur. You're a fitness entrepreneur where you have an app and you do a bunch of different things. I want to dive into that, but first I kind of want to rewind. And who was Krista growing up? Like, what did you envision? Were you going to be an entrepreneur? Were you going to be a person in the fitness space? Like, what were you thinking?
No, these are like probably both the entrepreneur and fitness aspect are the last things I would have ever guessed I would be. I didn't get into fitness till after college. I basically couldn't do anything. I couldn't do a push-up. Definitely couldn't do pull-up or handstands or anything like that, and never saw myself as really getting out of that kind of, I was pretty weak. I failed all those presidential fitness tests that we all had to take growing up. I played some team sports like basketball and soccer, but never really got into them, and really just thought I was destined to be a non-athletic, super clumsy, weak person. And that didn't change till after college. And as far as the entrepreneur aspect, no, my parents owned a dental office. So I kind of saw the runnings of a small business, but it was never in my head as something that was possible. I don't know if like you in high school, you would take these like career tests and they'd give you like these very limited ideas of what you could do with your career. And I knew that none of them fit, but I just didn't know that there was something else that I could really create my own career. And that took a while to figure out.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's a lot of learning. I think for most of us as entrepreneurs, it's unless you had that direct influence, it's really, I mean, you were closer to it, having the dental office sort of be in the family.
Yeah.
But that is it. I mean, I had no idea either. It took me forever to like realize that this is the life I'm more geared for. So you weren't really into fitness all that much. What was the turning point that got you into that first? I assume the fitness came before the entrepreneurship in the fitness space.
It sure did. I actually learned most of my life lessons through fitness. I can attribute most of the things I learned. And part of it was, so when I was growing up, I don't know if you know much about like fixed or growth mindsets. There's psychology terms where having a fixed mindset basically means that you think you were born with certain traits and that no matter what you do, you're not really going to get that much better. A growth mindset, on the other hand, you could probably guess, means that you think that you can get better and improve at something. So I had a total fixed mindset. And why that's so bad is that it really means that you are not even trying to get better. So because I never could do a push-up, I never tried to do a push-up, which looking back is crazy. Like now everything I know is like, come on, Krista. But, it's a simple mindset shift that really makes a big difference. And so what really changed for me was I was very lost growing up. I switched colleges like every 6 months. I had 10 majors, just really all over the place. And just super lost in my life. And I have an older brother who teases me and makes fun of me. And one day he challenged me to do a push-up, and I'm also very stubborn. So I didn't want to give in and admit that I couldn't do a push-up to my older brother. And I did 3 of like the worst push-ups that anyone has ever seen. They're probably awful, but that was kind of, I don't know, it just was a switch in me that I was at such a low point in my life that I was like, you know what, I'm going to try at something because nothing is working, like I thought I would just magically have some talent one day. Like I would wake up in Hogwarts and all of a sudden my wizardy skills would show up, and they didn't. So those push-ups were like the catalyst that made me try in fitness and then really in the rest of my life.
So then how did you go? So 3 push-ups, the very beginning. I like that. And a nice smooth transition into being who you are today, right? Just a very tiny baby step, and now you're here. So how did you then, what did you do right after that? What were your first steps?
My first steps were to try to kind of establish a workout habit, because I had always been like all over the place, total yo-yo fitness person. And so I started with I'm going to start running. And like, I hate running. Running is my least favorite thing. It always has been my least favorite thing. So I would have these 3-mile runs like 3 days a week, and I would do anything possible to get out of them. And it took a really long time of experimenting with different styles of fitness to realize that you actually should not hate your workout. So if you're hating your workout, you're probably doing something wrong. There are so many other types of exercise than like running. And yeah, it took me years of experimenting. I ended up at one point, because I had no idea what else to do with my life, getting my personal training certification when I had moved to Europe. And from there, yeah, I just started experimenting. I tried a lot of different things. I ended up really falling in love with like calisthenics, body weight training, high intensity interval training, kind of minimal equipment workouts. I just have always loved that. I love working out outside. I love like outdoor workout parks, like fitness parks are super fun to me. And just kind of figuring out different ways to get in movement kind of wherever you're at, if you're stuck in your house, or like I said, at a park. I'm not so into gyms. Even when I go to a gym, I'm like in the outdoor area of the gym using like maybe the pull-up bar and the medicine ball. But it took me like years to figure that out.
So then, first, outdoor fitness parks. I've never found a great one. Like I love so like I'm not looking, it's not something I'm searching for, but I've seen like Al Travadlo, and I think you might have done stuff with him at one time in New York City. And this is a complete sort of tangent, but where are some of your favorite fitness parks?
So first of all,
actually, how do you define that? Just for anyone who doesn't know what that entails.
It's like an adult workout playground. It's like literally a playground, but for adults, with pull-up bars and, maybe a bar to do a human flag on, or dips or things like that. A grass area so you can do push-ups and sit-ups. They're actually all over the world. And so there's a really terrible website. It's just like, I think they haven't updated it on the back end for like 20 years. But it's called calisthenicsparks.com with a hyphen in between calisthenics and parks. And people will list all the calisthenics workout parks all over the world. So I will go and travel. I'll be in like Italy and be like, okay, where's a workout park? And I go find it, and it's so much fun. That being said, my favorite workout park in the whole world is where I live in LA, in Santa Monica, California. It's amazing. It's on the beach. It's beautiful. It's huge. I pretty much moved here to be able to work out there.
Nice. Yeah, I love it there. I said I don't know where any are. I've been to that one. So, but yeah. So back to the sort of entrepreneurial world. So you are, at this point, you got your certification, your personal trainer certification. What were you doing? like, were you working a different job? Like, what were you doing sort of just before you started 12-Minute Athlete?
So I tried to do the gym trainer thing for a while, and that world is brutal, especially if you're working at a big box gym like I was in New York City. And I just couldn't do it. I also realized very quickly that I was really bad at having a boss, really bad at like working at a company, having someone tell me what to do. I just didn't do well with it. So
Yeah.
again, a very meandering journey of trying to figure out, okay, how can I have the lifestyle that I want, and figure out my own kind of job. And I really did start with that kind of lifestyle business thinking. And like when I started, this was 2012, crazy. Blogging was like the biggest thing back then. And I also had just read The 4 Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss.
Yeah, he's changed a lot of lives with that book, because that
Yeah,
was
for
me too.
sure.
That was
Really?
the thing that opened my mind. Like, it was right when it came out, but yeah.
Right? That's so crazy. So yeah, I read that, and I read Chris Gillaboo's The $100 Startup.
Mhm.
Also a very awesome book, but it was talking kind of about how to start a blog. And that was like, I've always been a writer. I studied journalism in school. Actually was like a radio journalist for a little bit. And
Nice.
so I wanted to kind of take my business online and figure out how to do that. So that's kind of where I tried out probably like 5 blogs before 12-Minute Athlete. Had no real focus. You know, you got to do that. You got to test out things, see if they work. And then that's the one that stuck, that I like had a good enough idea to actually stick with. And I made a content plan thanks to Chris Gillaboo's book. Had like 3 months of content before I even told anyone it existed. Already knew at that time that I wanted to create an app. So yeah, that's really how it got started.
Yeah, and I mean, diving into the app too, this is early. So was it 3 months in that you started building the app?
No, it was probably the year
Okay.
after, because I had no idea what I was doing. You know, I didn't know how to make an app.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a big leap too, because you're
Yeah.
building, I know you don't like fitness personality, but you're building yourself as a fitness personality. And then how are you going to tie in the business to it is always the big question.
Yeah.
So it was 3 months before you really started to promote it at all. What did you do sort of day one from that point? How were you promoting it? How were you starting to build your community?
So again, I had no idea what I was doing. I had no like long-term plan at that point. It was like I sent out that first email to friends and family, like, "Hey guys, like this is what I'm doing now." And seriously, it took my parents at least a year, if not more, before they stopped being like, "When are you going to get a real job?" And I was like, "No, this is it. I'm going to make this work." So I sent out that friends and family email, which is always kind of terrifying. And then just tried, you know, all the kind of guest blogging tactics online. You know, things have changed a lot since that time.
Mhm.
If there used to be RSS feeds, it used to be very different.
Yeah.
When I was first starting, I really liked Copy Blogger as a resource. That was super helpful. I actually went to like a copy blogger conference as well.
Yeah, that's how we
Um,
met.
yeah. And a couple. So I actually went to a few different conferences, and that was really interesting early on as a beginner in the space. Yeah, I feel like I learned a lot from that. It gave me some confidence, you know, when I met people like you and you were encouraging. And yeah, just kept going from there. I guess the main thing for me has always been consistency. So I, from the beginning, have written very, very consistently. I at first was writing 2 new blogs a week and like had 3
Wow.
new workouts a week, which looking back is a lot.
Oh yeah.
I have toned it down since then. Although with social media now, I don't know. So yeah, consistency and just sticking with the tactics that other people said worked. Like I said, guest blogging and just trying to get my name out there.
Yeah, for sure. So then when you started working on the app, had you reached a certain amount of email subscribers, traffic? Was there like a tipping point where you knew, okay, now it's time to invest?
That is a great question. First of all, I'm really bad with, I've never been great at like watching the numbers. I think I early on just decided not to do that too much because it felt too personal. Like I didn't want to look at a post that I really felt, that I really wanted to write and then see that it didn't get, as many views as I thought it should. Like I didn't want to rule my business by the numbers in that way, which, has good and bad things about it. Like sometimes I think it's good to do, but I also don't think, if you see a blog or a website that's all about the SEO, you can tell like there's no heart in it anymore. So I really didn't want to do that. But I did see, like we've talked about, the blogging was really big and everyone was starting a blog at that time. And I knew I needed to do something to differentiate myself. And the app world was also pretty new at the time. It was like 2013. And I really had this vision for an app that I wanted to create. And so I like saved up some money, did not get funding, and invested in that initial app. And that was definitely a tipping point for my business. Cause it was like, all of a sudden people took me and 12 my athletes seriously, which was really cool.
And now, was that the first selling the app for the first time? Was that the first dollar you made from the company, from this version of your entrepreneurial journey?
Yes.
Nice. And how did you then? So you were just you dove in head first into the app world. How did you find the people to work with? How did you negotiate? Sort of, what were your steps from concept to reality?
Yeah, that's the hard part. It's finding developers is really a tough process. Even now I struggle. I lucked out when I was first beginning. I had a mastermind group with a couple of people, one of which who had worked with a developer on an app before. And so he kind of gave me advice that, if you go and kind of draw out the app, so it's like the screen flow of the app, then it'll be a way easier for the developer. And so I did like kind of all the design and like, this screen goes into this screen and all that kind of stuff, that thinking that you have to do. And then he connected me to this developer who lived in Barcelona, and I really lucked out. Like I said, it was a really great first experience. Unfortunately, that same developer eventually took a full-time job. And so since it's been harder, like people think about the difficulty of creating apps, but then actually the upkeep has been much more challenging. And, the app world has changed so much. When I was first starting, it was like you either had a paid app or you had an app that had ads, and there weren't in-app purchases at all. So when that changed, like I had to change the whole model, which was definitely challenging.
Now, I know it's a while ago, but approximately how much did that cost for the first iteration of the app?
The first iteration cost like, I think $6,500, which now is a steal.
Oh yeah. It's like someone just starting out, it's a huge investment. To really, you're going in, you're dipping into the bank account and buying this thing. But yeah, today, apps just more and more expensive as you go.
Yeah. And they're just so much more complicated than they used to be too. Like my app was so simple. It was beautiful and simple starting out. And it's definitely been an interesting challenge trying to grow it and add features.
So at the very beginning, what were the features that were what was your minimum viable product that you had to deliver?
So the product was very simple. We had, and it's still like very much like this, but there were like 200 workouts built into the app, and think 7 different equipment options. So, body weight, kettlebell, pull-up bar, dip bar, a few others. And you just would choose a workout based on what you had available. And there was an interval timer built in. So if you wanted to do your own workout, and like I said, it was very simple. You could watch videos if you wanted. It didn't take you through, like, I'm not in there being like, do this rep and this rep. My audience tends to be a little more independent. So they look at the workout and then it takes them through with these little exercise icons. And yeah, it was just very cool, very simple. And it's still very much like that, but there's, more programs, more everything now versus the first iteration.
Mm-hmm. So how long was it before that was, because this is your full-time gig and it has been for years, how long, once you launched the app and possibly other products, was it before you were able to go all in? Or was it day one, you're like, no, this is it, I'm doing this?
No, it definitely took me time because I didn't actually have any paid products until the app. So I would say about a year in, it started to make, decent money where I could actually spend all my time on it, which is great.
Nice. Yeah. When did you then decide to introduce your next product or revenue stream even?
So that was a challenge for me. So it was probably 2 years in that I decided to have bigger programs, more coaching style programs on the site. And again, this was kind of when there weren't these platforms that there are now. It was actually kind of challenging to figure out what to use. I talked to some people who back in the day would have programs and they're just sending everything via email every week. It wasn't like these well thought out platforms like they have now. So yeah, I started introducing some of those as more like group coaching, had some ebooks, stuff like that, added more features to the app, in-app purchases, like I mentioned, is very exciting. And then most recently released my first book.
Yeah, so across all of those different streams of income, how would you say it's distributed?
The app has always been my main focus in terms of income. It's the thing I have the most fun with, and I like the platform the best. It's just really easy to use and fun to use, and I limit my coaching just because it takes up a lot of time. So I have a pretty small client base there, but that's also fun.
Yeah. And so you do a lot online on Instagram and YouTube and everything. How do you decide what should be premium and what should be for social media?
That is such a good question. I wish I thought about that better when I started, because I started with the idea that, well, first of all, I do want fitness to be accessible to everyone. So I've always wanted to keep my products affordable. I do not like the online marketing world when it's you can just tell they priced the product high because they wanted to or they could. And it doesn't deliver all that value. That's always really upset me. So I've always tried to keep things fairly reasonable and also have a lot of free stuff available on my site. On my website, I have thousands and thousands of free workouts. If you want to get fit and you can't afford it, I have options for you. And I never want that to be a barrier. But that being said, it is still a business. So early on, I think I offered too much for free, and figuring out that kind of fine line has always been a little bit of a challenge. But I basically, if it's just a workout, I post those all the time on Instagram, on YouTube, on my website. But if it's more into a program or a well thought out, mindset based thing or something like that, then it's going to be a little bit more. But again, I try to keep it affordable because I know that, fitness is important and not everyone can afford like high price stuff for no reason.
Yeah, I mean, and it is that fine line. Where do we
Sure.
cut off? Yeah, and where do we cut off the freebie? But we need to build the awareness. And obviously, you've grown immensely, but you want to continue growing, continue getting people into your products and services. Um, how do you generally feel people transition? Is it so they follow you on social media, they watch what you're doing, and then do they naturally go over? Do you have little prompts to say, "Hey, support me in this way"? How do you approach that?
Yeah. So one of the kind of prompts that I'll do is like I said, I have all these free things, but a lot of times people maybe look at a workout or something and not really know how to make progress. They're not at that level. They know that they're not at the level they want to be. And so I really help people like level up. So, no matter where they're starting from, I work with people of all different fitness levels and backgrounds. And I honestly don't care where you're at now, but I want to help you get where you even further than you think you can go. So back to that like fixed mindset thing, I want to get rid of people's fixed mindset and really help them make progress. And so something like we have like skill-based programs like learning to do a pull-up or things like that. And a lot of things that people really, especially women, but men too, will think it's impossible. So I really want to help them get rid of that mindset. So it's like people definitely come into the programs and stuff when they're kind of tired of, being at the same level that they're at, or they want to just figure out how to reach higher goals.
And now, so the programs you have them within the app and also through your site, or is it
Yeah.
are they segmented? Are they the same programs? Are they different?
They're different. The ones through the site, I would love all this to be a little bit more integrated, but we're working on it. The ones through the site are much more like group coaching. So a lot more like one-on-one time with me and really individualized goals, where the app, I don't have a lot of contact with the people who use the app. So it's very hands-off.
Yeah. So then, speaking of that, what does a typical day look like for Krista?
Oh, good question. So I get up, early-ish, 6:37, and I try to make sure to write for an hour and a half. 60 to 90 minutes is usually the goal. And then, so I try to be very focused during that time and like turn everything off. And then from there, I usually take a break, go to a workout. And my day is pretty like back to back, either workouts, or like, dog walk. Like I try to have very focused work times and then I take a break. Yeah, so I feel like every day is the same, but it's great. I've set up my days really how I want. I'm outside a lot. Now that coffee shops are starting to be open again, I get to work at my coffee shops. It's very exciting.
Nice.
But
And
yeah, it's great.
is your work time then, is it predominantly writing? Is there a lot of working with the developer or developers? Like sort of how do you distribute that time?
So I have been trying to get better about like very like focusing and segmenting my time on each project. So if like in the morning, I will be writing either an article or writing something for my book. Later in the day, I'll take a chunk of time and work only on the app. And then, I try not to check my email 1,000 times during the day. Like I just try to be very focused and intentional, and it helps a lot. It helps, get into flow much easier. And you really get much more productive if you're not scatterbrained between, 10 things at once. That's when I feel like I get nothing done, when I'm trying to do 10 things.
Yeah. Agreed. So then are you handling everything? Are you a one-person show? Do you have any contractors, employees that you work with? I mean, obviously the developer, but
Yeah. I do actually. I have a virtual assistant who is awesome, and she just does kind of like basic WordPress coding type stuff, some customer support, and I have another content person who helps me think of, ideas for writing and gets our launches at the door, stuff like that. It's very helpful.
yeah. So with so much content, how do you determine what to talk about next, what to work on next? Because there is so much out there that you've done.
There's so much. I These days I've gone back and forth. There's times when I just want to write what I'm inspired to write, and that's fine. And then sometimes when it seems relevant, we'll actually plan the content out, and maybe it's by time of year or around a launch or something, and so that will be like pre-planned a little bit. But I do all my own social media because I like the chance to get inspired to kind of say something that I feel in the moment. And again, I can kind of see through the brands that are just like so planned. And yeah, I don't know. I want to be a real human. So I do a lot of that.
Oh yeah. How would you say, even when it comes to social media, where does that come from? Where does the inspiration come from? Do you find from like books and reading or things you watch, or just generally introspection maybe?
Yeah, that's a good question. I read a ton. I'm always reading books. I have, at least a few audiobooks and books on my Kindle at any time. So I get very inspired by what I'm reading. I'm always taking courses. I have a mastermind group that we're always talking about interesting ideas. So those are where, yeah, it's like I'll read, even the people in my mastermind group will, like, we just talked about that like the other day, and then I'm writing something new on it. But it's great to be able to get inspired about something that you were thinking about or reading about. So
Oh yeah, for
that
sure.
happens a lot.
And so the mastermind group is a great representation of your network. I mean, not just your community that you've built for the 12-minute athlete, but the network of people who I'm assuming are also entrepreneurs or fitness personalities and whatnot. How did you connect with them in the first place? Is this the same one from the early days?
No, mastermind groups are interesting. I think they're amazing. They're amazing resources. And if you can find a great group, that's awesome. I have gone through several since I started, and this recent one is by far the best. And I think it's because we're all more kind of confident in the direction that we're going in our lives. The first one that I was in, like, I lucked out by finding the app developer through it, but like we had nothing in common. And we were also so new that it wasn't, we didn't feel like we had a lot to offer. Whereas now it's like, I definitely feel more confident. I know some things about something, I have plenty to learn, but like, at least I have something to offer. And so, yeah, my current group, it's about 8 people, and we're actually like all sorts of different fields. Our main interest is psychology, so we kind of come together and talk about that. But it's awesome.
And is that usually through Facebook or just like text message? How do you like quantify all of that?
Yeah, we have a weekly Zoom meeting, of course. um, Everything's on Zoom now.
Uh-huh.
And we have a Slack channel, some Google like shared docs, stuff like that.
Yeah, so then do you tend to bounce around ideas? Is it more sticking with like psychology and whatnot, or?
I mean, that's the general premise, but people are different or interested in
Mhm.
different things too. So, yeah, we bounce around ideas, or like we have like a running book list. We watch an interesting YouTube video, we'll send it out to each other. That's very cool. It's
Nice.
like
Yeah,
a
I find.
learning circle.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like having that network is so valuable.
Yeah.
What are we, the sum of the people around us, like the people who are closest to us, however that phrase goes. But but it really helps because I think as entrepreneurs, we can just get in our shell and end up not really connecting with other people. And it's very easy just to sit at home, typing away, like for me, like coding or design or whatever it is, and not really engaging with other people, like awesome people like yourself.
Well, especially now with everyone at home.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And no conferences.
Yeah. Are there any other conferences that you sort of wouldn't miss that you've gone to that you think were big value?
I loved going to conferences early on in my career. I feel like I got a ton out of them. I went to, let's see if I can remember any of them. There was like the New Media Expo. It was kind of around blogging. Now it kind of turned into a podcast one. You should go. The World Domination Summit. Have you ever heard of that one by Krista?
Oh yeah, Krista.
Yeah, so I went to that a few times. I went to the ConvertKit something or other. They have a conference. It's about like creators. It's pretty cool. But the thing is, I mean, it's a good thing, but like as you get more experience, it's like it's hard to go to conferences and feel like you're learning much. You know, in later years, I kind of felt like I could have taught all the classes. So I'm now kind of branching out. I went to one earlier this year it's called the Flow Research Collective, and they do a lot of psychology stuff. I'm obviously very into mindset stuff these days. So that was super fun. And it was really different than like the marketing conferences I'd gone to before. It's like, everyone there is like a sports psychologist or has a PhD in neuroscience, so it's just a really fun, different atmosphere. But I highly recommend conferences for networking, and not even just, and networking is a silly word, but like just meeting other cool people, really. And, you know, you're going to learn something. They're a really good experience.
Yeah, especially early on. I mean, because a lot of times we don't have people around us who are doing something that we want. I mean, I think it's very rare when we have that entrepreneurial community that then gets us into it. We sort of, like you said, you couldn't work for someone, which like I feel the same way. I worked a desk job for a while and I could never go back to that, you know? But there wasn't anyone around me other than people online and the 4-hour work week and all of these things that I was seeking, but no one knew me. I had no interaction with them. So yeah, early on, I think conferences are very valuable.
Yeah.
So you recently published a book, correct? Was that something you did on your own through a publisher? How did that work out?
So I first self-published. This was 2 years ago, and then it actually got picked up by a publisher, Tiller Press, which is a subset of Simon & Schuster. And so that was officially out in March of this year.
So how did that happen? Did they approach you because they saw the book? Did you pitch it to them?
They approached me, which was awesome.
Yeah, that is very cool.
Yeah.
And what kind of negotiations then did you have to go through? Was it pretty straightforward, or did you have a lot? Because I mean, I feel like it's a really new thing, like for us, like we're doing our thing in our world, and then to have to go into the traditional world, it's a little different.
Yeah, it was super different. They were great though. You know, early on we talked about they didn't want to make huge changes to the book, which was really important to me. Obviously, I'm always up for making it better, but I don't want them to like have me water it down a bunch or just change the message. So that was really important to me to make sure that it was going to be something I was still proud of. But they did a good job.
Yeah. So what's next on the horizon for you then? Are there any new projects coming along or anything you're excited about?
Yeah, I'm writing my second book right now, so that's really fun. I'm obviously very into writing, so this one's going to be, my first one was kind of like an overview of my like philosophy, HIIT training, bodyweight fitness, kind of how to make progress no matter where you're starting from. And the next one's going to be much more in depth on mindset, some psychology stuff, motivation, but still like around fitness. So
Nice.
that's a
So,
huge project right now.
oh yeah, I could imagine. And I've noticed you've started to talk a lot more about mindset and things, like sort of
Oh,
to bridge that gap between the two worlds.
yeah.
How are you finding that transition? So, because obviously, I mean, as you've said, mindset is huge for your personal life, for your fitness goals and everything. But
Hmm.
since you do a lot of workouts, has there been any challenge in bridging that gap?
I mean, I think there's always a challenge in like, you want to go in a slightly new direction. You're going to lose some people, maybe bring on new people, but that's fine. That's how it goes. Like everyone is going to go through that at some point in well, probably many points in their career.
Yeah.
You can't just stay in the same place forever. So, I mean, overall, it's been really good. I've always kind of intuitively talked about these types of things. I just didn't have the words for them before. I didn't know like the actual research behind anything. So now that I'm learning more about that, it's like very cool that like, oh, I actually like had this hunch 5 years ago or whatever. I just didn't know what it was.
Mhm.
So it's still, the message is very similar. It's just like, yeah, going much more into that, writing a lot more about it. It's been fun.
Yeah. And when do you expect to sort of have your maybe draft or publish date? I'm not sure because obviously it's a huge project, so it's probably a little
Yeah,
in flux. But
it
do you have an
is.
expected date?
No expected date. I mean,
Okay.
it's going to be a good year. Like,
Hmm.
long-term projects.
Yeah. And not to go too much further, but when it comes to a book, then I've heard a lot, of course, that it's tough to earn money from the book. Have you found that? And have you instead used it in a different way, maybe as lead generation or anything like that?
Yeah, I don't know a single author that's like, oh yeah, I'm making all my money off my books. Like, no matter how well they do, that's just not it. Maybe you could do that in the past, but now it's like, with the online world and everything, and as authors, like you really need more streams of income. So a book, sure, if it does well, awesome, but you want to have courses. When we are allowed to be in person again, like I'm going to do more speaking and workshops and that kind of stuff to kind of round it out. Um, Keep up with the app, but just have like, I heard somewhere, I don't know, try to have 7 different sources
Mhm.
of income. So if something dries up, then you would still have other things to go off of. Books alone is not a long-term strategy. It's just what I want to do. So I need to find ways to like support that.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, you want to be doing the things that you personally want to do because if you make a job out of being an entrepreneur, it's sort of no different than what would have been doing before. So,
Exactly.
one last question.
Yeah.
If today was the last day you were going to earn money from what you have set up now, what would you start with tomorrow? It could be in the same fitness space and like it could be the same exact thing, but for some weird bizarro world, the money's going to dry up and you have to start from the ground floor. How would you get started today?
That is a really good question. I I have like 5 different routes I would go. In some parallel universe, I would probably start and just go right and get my master's or PhD and like become an actual psychologist and do research and maybe work with athletes, that kind of thing. Another parallel universe, I would be more of a journalist and write about all the cool stuff that's going on. Not necessarily be the one like leading it, but be the writer and write for more magazines and write books and stuff. So those are the like 2 paths I would take.
Yeah. And just on that note, how do you feel about being the leader of this? Like you're the face of everything that you're doing.
It's always been a struggle for me. I never created, that's why I didn't create the brand Krista Stryker Fitness, because I thought that was, first of all, that's lame. And then second of all, I wanted it to be bigger than me. So my favorite thing in the world is when someone like approaches me on the street and they're like, you're the person who created that 12-Minute Athlete app. And they don't know my name. They don't necessarily like think of me as the entirety of the brand. That is the best thing to me. So I was always just the face of the brand just because, you know, I'm the one doing so much of it, but I never wanted it to be all about me. And yeah, future goals would be to like bring in other trainers and have other people work with me on it. So it just becomes more of a bigger brand.
Yeah, I mean, but that is great. That is the thing, because it's a recognizable brand. People coming to you and not knowing your name, of course, is probably a little bit of, well, I mean, it's me, you know my name, but at the same time, like you're building something bigger than you, like you said.
Yeah.
But yeah, this has been great. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah.
And for people who want to follow along, check out the app and do everything, where should we send them?
I'm pretty easy to Google these days. You can find everything at 12minuteathlete.com, or if you Google 12-Minute Athlete, or all of the social accounts are at 12-Minute Athlete. It's pretty easy to find, which is great. SEO is helpful.
Nice. Well, yeah, so I won't take any more of your time. Thank you so much for being with us today, and we will talk again soon.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
I want to thank Krista for chatting today. Be sure to visit 12minuteathlete.com to see everything that she's up to, and follow her everywhere on social media at 12minuteathlete. You'll find all the links in the show notes. As always, this episode of Starting Now is brought to you by our platform BYLT. At BYLT, we help you get started online. Whether you want to start a blog or a business, head on over to BYLT.co. That's at BYLT.co to get started. BYLT, your website, built for you, simply. Finally, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, be sure to check out the video version of the show on YouTube. You'll find all the links for this episode at BYLT.co/005. That's BYLT.co/005. Well, that'll do it for this week. Again, I'm Jeff Sarris, and this has been Starting Now. I will see you next week.